Discover how Thatcher and Reagan unintentionally created an incredible billionaire dynasty. That, Andrew Marshall wiped down the counter for what felt like the 100th time that night. The fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows over both the polished linoleum and the tired faces of the late-night diner patrons. He glanced at the affluent college kids, laughing and flicking their hair, words saturated with privilege. Andrew's chest tightened, a relentless reminder of his family's humble beginnings. He clutched the rag, fighting the urge to yell that they were not so different, that he too had dreams beyond this diner. Hard work, integrity, those were his inheritance, instilled by his mechanic father and resolute schoolteacher mother. But all that seemed to crumble under the weight of wealth that glistened unwelcomingly around him. One night, as he served coffee to a regular, Mr. Carter, an elderly, retired economics professor, an unexpected seed was planted in Andrew's mind. "You know," Mr. Carter said, his voice deep with resonance, "people like us change the world through ideas. You have the spark." Andrew felt the old man's gaze penetrate, searching for something. Was it fear, doubt, or were these simply the echoes of his soul searching for acknowledgement? Andrew had always been captivated by the theory of merit, the idea that diligence would ultimately pay off. Yet nights full of greasy dishes left him exhausted, sleepy eyes barely making sense of his economics textbooks. He wanted to live up to the legacy of his grandfather, a once thriving businessman whose dreams were bulldozed during a recession. A part of Andrew longed for that inheritance, not just of property, but of potential. But that faded inheritance felt more like a crumbling shack than the American dream. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. But even as the urge to salvage his ancestry stirred within him, doubt crept in like a shadow. He could see Jake Thompson, his high school rival, establishing a flourishing business right under Andrew's nose. Jake had always made it look effortless, wielding wealth like a sword. With competitors like him, was honesty a burden? The notion made his stomach churn, igniting a gnawing fear that no matter how hard he fought, the system would push back. And what of meritocracy? It felt like dust in his hands whenever he tried to grasp it. Digging deeper into his grandfather's legacy unearthed chilling documents, proof of systemic inequities that shaped the landscape of their town, reinforcing Andrew's battle against Jake's cutthroat tactics. Andrew felt despair clawing at him. The more he learned, the fortitude stemming from ambition wrestled with the frustrating recognition that deeply entrenched policies favored wealth over willfulness. Standing at the abandoned, weathered property inherited from his grandfather, Andrew was grappling with everything that meant anything to him. It stood there, a dilapidated monument to dreams unfulfilled, and what it symbolized pressed heavily upon him. Staring up at its grim facade, his mind reeled with a question that raised the stakes. Would he choose the honor of his family legacy or bend to the hollow ideals of success as defined by others, particularly Jake Thompson? The air was taut with confrontation, a storm gathering within his heart. Andrew took a deep breath, the tension rising. He was just moments away from either reclaiming his lineage or losing himself in his pursuit. And as he turned to face the upcoming clash with Jake, uncertainty swept like a dark wave through him. What hidden complications awaited him, ready to shatter everything he had fought for? Andrew stood rooted in front of his grandfather's property, the desolation around him mirroring the turmoil within. This place was more than just a house. It was a testament to dreams lost, battles fought, and the enduring weight of expectations. He felt the ghosts of his ancestors urging him forward, daring him to confront the past and reshape his future. The sensation of urgency spurred him onto the front porch. It creaked under his weight, reminding him of the countless moments spent here as a child, a time when aspirations felt within reach. Those innocent dreams collided with a stark reality. He couldn't afford to allow that legacy to fade away. With one last determined glance at the peeling paint and overgrown weeds, he collapsed into the reasoning that change required more than merely wanting it. The next day, Andrew scoured his grandfather's archives for insights beyond mere bookkeeping. Among old ledgers, he unearthed strategies, plans that his grandfather once crafted for expansion, opportune investments misplaced during the recession. He marveled at the ingenuity captured in those pages, powerful ideas trapped in time, waiting for someone with the tenacity to breathe life into them. But with inspiration came a jolt of anxiety. How could he compete with Jake's polished, well-financed enterprise? Andrew had learned from Mr. Carter that innovative thinking had the potential to change the game, but coming up with fresh ideas while working nights at the diner felt Sisyphean. He recognized that to materialize these ambitions, he needed resources and connections. Rubbing a weary hand across his face, he realized this all started with a network. He made the unusual decision to approach Mr. Carter for guidance. After all, the man was rich with knowledge and had a network steeped in academic prestige. Andrew had long respected him, but had never imagined seeking his mentorship. Those thoughts clashed against the stubborn independence that marked his upbringing. However, desperation can carve paths where pride would otherwise delimit them. At their scheduled meeting, the old professor greeted Andrew with warmth. Over steaming cups of coffee, Andrew laid bare his aspirations and fears. "You have remarkable potential," Mr. Carter said, his eyes glittering with intrigue. "But potential is worthless without action. Let's construct a plan. I can help you connect with those who can invest in your ideas." Those words ignited a spark within Andrew, a spark that resonated with the foundations of hard work and integrity his parents had instilled. The world outside the diner faded, leaving only clarity. He was finally forging the path to reclaim his family legacy. In the ensuing weeks, Andrew tapped into his new network, attending seminars and networking events. He refined his business acumen and pitched ideas gleaned from his grandfather's plans. The feedback oscillated between praise and critique. Encouragement fueled his resolve, while harsh truths fanned the flames of his fear. Each encounter revealed weaknesses he aimed to overcome, igniting a pursuit of wisdom. He devoured books on entrepreneurs, hoping to glean insights that would guide his fledgling ambitions. Yet, in the back of his mind, Jake's looming presence nagged like an itch. They were now competitors in a race that felt rigged against him. Through conversations and connections, it dawned on Andrew that Jake flourished by leveraging connections his wealth could buy. But he could not become like Jake, nor simply match his tactics. Instead, he vowed to cultivate a stature grounded in authenticity. Armed with courage and driven by purpose, Andrew stood at the precipice of a new opportunity, one that married his family's legacy with his dreams. He was ready to test the waters. However, he knew the journey would involve conflict, obstacles, and confrontations. As uncertainty clawed at him, Andrew understood that his moment of truth was fast approaching. He had merely been biding time. Soon, he would face Jake, a reckoning that would define his destiny. And as that reality loomed just over the horizon, another thought pierced his mind. What if success required him to gamble everything he had, including who he was? Andrew spent countless hours preparing for the upcoming pitch. His grandfather's old plans, now rejuvenated through his own innovation, served as his guideposts. He meticulously constructed each presentation, feeding on the advice he received from Mr. Carter about capturing the attention of investors. Yet even as he rehearsed the intricate details, internal battles surged within him. Doubt intertwined with hope, forcing him to confront a painful truth.
The idea of failure loomed as prominently as the image of Jake in the distance. At the same time, Andrew embraced the perpetual ticking clock. He felt like a streetlight flickering indecisively, illuminating only fragments of his potential. The diner, with its regulars and low lights, became a sanctuary where he could escape from thoughts of competition. But beneath the calm of the coffee-stained countertop, anxiety simmered. He knew he must transcend the diner's comfort zone to step truly into his aspirations. With each networking event he attended, Andrew wrestled with his emotional state. He was no
longer the untested dreamer. He was an entrepreneur on the brink of something substantial. However, each interaction felt like a reflection of his inadequacies, which invisibly shadowed him. As he greeted seasoned investors who shared hollow smiles, he questioned his own place amidst their confidence. These were the trial-by-fire moments he previously feared, yet they were the very catalyst for growth he needed. The preliminary feedback on his pitches started to slowly filter in. A few connections expressed interest. They found promise in the concept of building upon his grandfather's blueprints. Yet that positivity was often paired with questions that revealed Andrew's vulnerability, the questions aimed at exposing the cracks in his plan. For every nod he received, there seemed to be a counterpoint that made his stomach twist. During one particularly grueling feedback session, an investor pointedly asked, "What do you bring to the table that your competitor Jake doesn't?" Andrew's heart raced. The question was simple yet devastating, and it struck him with the force of a freight train. The suggestion lingered, making him feel inferior in his own right. Jake could afford talented strategists and market analysts, while Andrew spent sleepless nights honing ideas on scraps of paper. As he left the meeting, Andrew was caught in a quagmire of introspection. He had known what needed to be done. He had to evolve. This moment transformed a dormant instinct within him, compelling him to dig deeper within himself. If Jake's path was paved with resources, Andrew's would have to be crafted from perseverance and ingenuity in ways that could not be bought. He focused on what made him distinct, his connection to his family's legacy, his understanding of the market from the ground up, the lessons embedded in the old ledgers he had studied so intently. Armed with these realizations, he started brainstorming how to differentiate his venture through a blend of heritage and innovation. Then, one evening, as Andrew scattered pages filled with thoughts across the diner booth, inspiration struck. A community-driven initiative that would brand his business as a beacon of hope and resilience emerged in his mind, pairing well with the narratives rooted in his family's history. The potential of uplifting local businesses while promoting his own idea transformed his angst into determination. Fueled by this epiphany, he typed out a new pitch, infusing it with the aspects that truly matter to him. Andrew felt steadier, aligning the foundation of his venture not only around profits, but also a shared purpose. Yet, just as he thought he found his footing, a chilling text came through. It was from Mr. Carter. "Jake is preparing a major push. You might want to act quickly." The weight of impending pressure began to settle upon him, urging him to step up faster than he had anticipated, testing the depth of his resolve. With the prospect of Jake's looming threat ahead, Andrew knew he had no more time to waste. What he had built up until now was just the beginning. Would he be bold enough to face this rising storm? Or would he retreat into doubt? The moment of truth was inching closer, a reckoning that could ensure his legacy or seal its fate. The next morning brought an air of determination that Andrew had not felt before. He woke early, invigorated by a restless night filled with dreams of innovation and resilience. There was a stark difference between the past Andrew, who had hidden behind the shadows of self-doubt, and the present man, ready to confront the challenges lying ahead. As he brewed his coffee, he thought of the narrative he wished to weave into his pitch, a blend of his family's legacy and a bold vision for the future. Each sip fueled a fire within him, and he finally turned to his computer with renewed resolve.
The white screen felt inviting, a canvas stretched wide enough to contain all his ambitions. The first step was simple: lay out the guiding principles of his core belief. Entrepreneurship should uplift, not just profit. Yet, with every word he typed, his thoughts drifted back to Jake and the fear of failure. Jake's upcoming campaign loomed large in Andrew's mind. The sharp sting of comparison clawed at him, but he drew strength from it rather than letting it hinder his creativity. What if Andrew could illustrate the notion that character and heritage often outshine sheer financial might? He envisioned each investor leaning in, captivated by a story that resonated with heart and authenticity. As he crafted his presentation, Andrew decided to incorporate real testimonies from the diner, blending anecdotes into something powerful, stories that reflected the struggles and triumphs of local entrepreneurs. The impact of his family's history, intertwined with these narratives, began to paint a picture that would set him apart from Jake. Instead of evoking sterile statistics, he would showcase lived experiences. This not only highlighted the emotional gravitas behind the numbers, but created an emotional connection. In his enthusiasm, he reached out to Mr. Carter with a draft of his new pitch. His mentor's reply came almost instantly, infusing Andrew with mixed anticipation and anxiety. He needed validation more than ever, but also feared possible rejection. The moments clicked by painfully slow as he waited. Finally, the phone buzzed with a notification. As he scanned the message, a mix of exhilaration and trepidation surged through him. Mr. Carter's insights were both encouraging and constructive. He pointed out potential weaknesses, but praised the emotional resonance of the presentation Andrew had crafted. With a spark of hope ignited within him, Andrew felt more emboldened than ever. He had transformed vulnerability into strength through authenticity. Fueled by this affirmation, Andrew plunged into a frenetic phase of preparation. Every element of the pitch was crafted with meticulous care, evoking the spirit of service and communal uplift that had originally guided his family. He thought of his grandfather, the sacrifices made, and the dreams shared, and held that energy as his guiding force. As the hours dragged on, Andrew's resolve only deepened. It was more than just a pitch. It was an embodiment of his family's ethos, a reflection of who he was becoming. The once flickering streetlight now glowed bright, illuminating the path forward. Yet, as he settled into a rhythm, the relentless chime of urgency echoed persistently in the back of his mind. Just as he put the final touches on his presentation, another message pinged through. This one was from a familiar name, Jake. Looking forward to our upcoming pitches. May the best entrepreneur win. Andrew's heart raced. The challenge was no longer theoretical. It was palpable and immediate. He inhaled deeply, feeling the burn of adrenaline coursing through him. In this moment, he understood the stakes more than ever. The clash with Jake was not just professional. It was a test of his very identity and belief in himself. With a pulse-quickening realization, Andrew thought, I have a story worth telling. Could he truly transform his drive into something monumental, or would Jake's polished facade obscure his voice? The night's looming pitch was not merely an invitation. It was a battle for his aspirations, and he needed to prepare. The moment approached when he would have to trust not only in his strategy, but also in his identity, rising to the occasion not just as a businessman, but as a cornerstone of his family's legacy. But was he ready to embrace the power of his narrative, or would self-doubt unravel it all at the last moment? The clock was ticking, and each tick intensified Andrew's sense of urgency. The dim light of the office illuminated his scattered notes, a chaotic reflection of his racing thoughts. He paced, his mind darting between self-affirmation and anxiety. What if he faltered in front of the investors? What if Jake's polished pitch eclipsed his heartfelt narrative? The stakes felt unreal, and that made him hyper-aware of the potential for failure. Andrew settled into the chair, forcing himself to breathe. Each breath steered him back to the core of what he stood for. This pitch wasn't just about money or accolades. It represented his family story, one built on resilience in the face of adversity. He envisioned his grandfather, a man of unwavering conviction who built a legacy with grit and determination. Could Andrew channel that same spirit? He had to, or risk losing not just the opportunity, but the essence of who he was. Determined, he flipped open his laptop and revisited the last version of his presentation. The anecdotes he crafted from local stories were powerful, yet Andrew sensed they needed refinement. He imagined adding a more structured narrative arc. Each story could lead to a pivotal lesson about the strength found in community and tradition. Andrew decided to highlight 3 specific testimonials that exemplified the struggles and victories of everyday entrepreneurs, ones who had faced challenges similar to those he hoped to address. It was an all-or-nothing moment. He wanted every investor to see the emotional, ethical significance of his effort. The fear of being seen as merely another figure chasing wealth gnawed at him. This wasn't a contest of who could shill the best business model. It was about lifting others as he climbed. With renewed focus, Andrew began reworking his slides, integrating visuals that captured the essence of each story, evoking emotions and reflecting the grit of real-life entrepreneurship. Later that evening, Andrew consulted with his sister, Karen, who had a knack for storytelling. He knew her perspective could help him refine his narratives even more. The evening was rife with laughter and passionate debates, each anecdote sparking memories that lit up their creativity. It felt good to bounce thoughts around, and Andrew realized this collaborative effort was recharging his spirit. This was more than his vision. It was a project that could resonate deeply with their family's values. "Remember, Andrew," Karen said, her eyes earnest, "you're not just selling a business. You're telling a story that connects people. Make it relatable. Make them feel it." Her words sank deep into his mind, sparking an unexpected confidence within him. He was not alone in this. His family's ethos was alive in every detail he shaped within the presentation. Andrew recognized that his unique angle, the fate of the community intertwined with the rise of his potential business, could indeed provide the emotional depth he was aiming for. The session ended, but Andrew sensed a shift in his mindset. The fear of Jake no longer loomed like a dark cloud. Instead, it transformed into a sign of the fierce competition that would test his mettle. Jake's success sparked a drive within Andrew, pushing him to sharpen his arguments and hone his pitch even further. Just as he finished revising the outline, a message pinged from Mr. Carter. "Ready for tomorrow, Andrew? This is your moment to shine. Believe in yourself." His heart swelled with a blend of gratitude and dread. Tomorrow wouldn't just be a pitch, it was an invitation to rise. He glanced at his reflection in the laptop screen. Could he stand firm in the face of scrutiny, using his story as his shield? He felt a surge of determination. Andrew felt the pull of night and the weight of what lay ahead. As he closed his laptop, a thought emerged with haunting clarity. The true battle wasn't just against Jake. It was with the remnants of his former self, the one still shackled by doubt and insecurity. He understood that embracing vulnerability and authenticity would require courage beyond what he had ever known. Stepping outside for a breath of fresh air, a chill ran down his spine. The stars twinkled brightly against the canvas of the sky, and it hit him. These stars represented countless stories, just like his own. He closed his eyes, focusing on that honest belief. He had a narrative worth sharing, one that could outshine polished facades. Tomorrow's pitch awaited him, and in that moment, Andrew felt the exhilarating weight of potential.
Dawn would reveal not just an opportunity, but a trial of everything he had chosen to become. As he stepped back inside, the realization rooted itself deep. The true victory would not simply rest in winning. It would lie in the courage to fully inhabit his own story. The wheel of fate was turning, and the next chapter beckoned. Would he fully embrace the experience awaiting him, or would he falter in those final moments? The morning sun streamed through the office windows, casting a warm glow on Andrew's meticulously organized presentation slides. He sat at his desk, heart racing as the moment of truth approached. Breakfast felt like a blur, the taste of coffee lingering on his tongue as he mentally prepared himself. Today was not just another day, it was a pivotal moment that could redefine his future. As he reviewed his notes, doubt crept in again, whispering that he wasn't ready. What if the investors perceived him as inexperienced? What if they dismissed his stories as overly sentimental? To combat these insidious thoughts, Andrew closed his eyes and inhaled deeply, envisioning the faces of those he had interviewed. Their stories danced in his mind, tales of tenacity, failures overcome, and dreams pursued despite the odds. These narratives were anchors, rooting him to a purpose he believed in fiercely. He stood and began pacing the room, echoing the night before. His mind raced with the need to clarify his message. He had crafted a tale about resilience, but clarity eluded him in the pressure cooker of his excitement. He grabbed a pen and a blank notepad, jotting down his main points: connection, struggle, triumph. This would not just be a pitch, it was a call to action, an opportunity for investors to become part of a community-driven narrative. A sudden knock at the door jolted him from his thoughts. It was Karen, her expression awash with worry. "You look like you've seen a ghost," she said, her tone light yet laced with concern. "I'm fine," he replied, attempting to inject some enthusiasm, but failing to mask the rising tension within. "Just fine," she prodded, stepping further into the room. "It's okay to admit you're nervous." Nervous, the word echoed in Andrew's mind like a drumbeat. Why was he afraid to embrace that vulnerability? Could it be that admitting his fear would somehow diminish his strength? Yet hadn't he just spoken about vulnerability being his shield? "Actually, I am, but maybe that's a good thing," he finally admitted, surprising even himself. Karen smiled knowingly. "It shows you care. Channel that energy into your pitch. Use it as fuel rather than letting it weigh you down." Her words reignited a flicker of determination. "I'll own it. I'll show them that this is personal, that I'm not just another entrepreneur chasing dollars. I'm here to make a difference." "Exactly," she encouraged, "and remember what you've learned from those stories. They're the heart of your presentation." The conversation shifted, something deep within Andrew. He wasn't just battling for his own career, he was fighting for the many voices he represented. This pitch would not only be a reflection of him, but of those who yearned to be seen and heard. Hiding behind a facade of perfection was no longer an option. Despite the anxiety simmering beneath the surface, he felt a renewed energy. Preparing himself mentally for the pitch, Andrew considered the stakes. It wasn't simply about dollars and cents. It was about connecting on a personal level, resonating with the investors through shared human experiences. As he reviewed his slides one last time, Andrew realized he needed to initiate conversations during the pitch itself, not just deliver a monologue. He could invite the investors to partake in a dialogue about community and shared values, wanting them to see their investment not as a transaction, but as a commitment to a shared future. Determined, Andrew fashioned a tale that would weave the testimonials into a broader narrative, one that transcended business, a story about making meaningful impacts. Time slipped away, and the clock inched closer to the meeting. With a final glance at his reflection, Andrew straightened his shoulders, pushing aside doubts clinging like shadows. Today, he would not allow fear to define him. He would redefine what it meant to be an entrepreneur. As he approached the elevator, the doors opened, revealing the polished conference room where dreams and realities would clash. Andrew felt a surge of adrenaline course through him. This was it, the moment where his story would be either embraced or rejected. He stepped inside, ready to unveil just how high the stakes really were. Would he rise to the challenge or fall victim to the weight of unresolved anxieties? Andrew stepped into the conference room, the air thick with anticipation and a faint scent of freshly brewed coffee. The sleek, modern design of the space struck him. Glass walls, a long oval table,
and a monumental screen ready to display his carefully crafted slides. As he took his seat, he noticed the investors already gathered, their expressions a blend of intrigue and skepticism. Each one represented a potential ally or adversary, and this stark reality gripped his stomach in a tight knot. He set his notes on the table, hands trembling slightly, but he reminded himself of Karen's words, "Channel the nervous energy." As he looked around, he saw a mixture of faces, some warm, others cold. They were not merely investors, they were individuals who could shape the trajectory of not just his future, but the futures of countless others whose stories he carried with him. Andrew straightened, drawing in a breath to focus. The first few moments passed in an agonizing silence. His mind raced. There was no going back now. This meeting was about more than just numbers. It was about illustrating the heart of his mission, about connecting the dots between personal stories and collective impact. "Good morning, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to
Meet with me today," he began, his voice steadier than he felt. He launched into the first part of his presentation, emphasizing the shared struggles and triumphs of those he had interviewed. As he spoke, he observed the investors. Some leaned in, nodding, while others shifted in their seats, seemingly bored. As Andrew transitioned into his narrative of resilience, he felt the energy shift slightly in the room. Something had clicked. Perhaps it was that spark of honesty emerging from his vulnerability. He recounted tales of loss and perseverance, noting how those experiences reshaped his understanding of success. He highlighted the genuine impact his venture could have, illustrating how investment was not just monetary, but an investment in real lives. The questions began to arise, first routine, then more probing. "Do you really believe this is sustainable?" one investor challenged, a hint of skepticism in his tone. Andrew felt his heart sink, but stepped forward, undeterred. "Yes, I do. Because sustainability isn't just about profits. It's about how we support one another in achieving our goals. It's about building a network of support that changes lives," Andrew answered, his passion bubbling up. His words felt like a shield against the doubt creeping back in. As the back and forth continued, Andrew found he could ease into the rhythm of the dialogue. He thought about Karen's earlier encouragement. In this moment, he wasn't just a young entrepreneur, but a spokesperson for change, clarity blossoming in his mind. Each question was an opportunity to delve deeper, to flesh out both his mission and the stories behind it. Yet, despite the adrenaline fueling his responses, self-doubt reared its head once more. What if, despite his earnestness, he remained just a blip on their financial radar? Andrew took a moment to gather his thoughts, realizing he needed to highlight not just the potential, but why this mattered, to them, to him, and to the individuals at the heart of his project. He positioned this venture as not merely an opportunity for revenue, but as a chance to be part of a narrative that reinstated faith in human connection. He leaned closer to the table, his voice low but emergent with conviction. Imagine a world where every dollar you invest in this venture is not just a transaction. It's an investment in a legacy of empathy and change. By uniting your resources with our mission, you're contributing to a cause that has the power to build bridges. The investors remained silent, their expressions reflecting a complex mix of contemplation and intrigue. It felt like a pivotal moment, one that could either forge a path to collaboration or seal his fate as merely another entrepreneur with a dream. As the meeting wore on, Andrew locked eyes with each investor, seeking to make a personal connection with them. He wanted them to feel as invested in the stories he had shared as he was. When the meeting finally wrapped up, Andrew stepped away from the table, heart racing in anticipation of their feedback. He had laid his soul bare, challenging them to see not just the business potential, but the human aspect of it all. The stakes had never felt higher. But as he exited the conference room, a nagging thought lingered. Had he truly communicated the depth of his purpose? And would it be enough to turn skeptical investors into passionate advocates? With this question weighing heavily in his mind, Andrew prepared himself for the response that could either launch him into a new phase of his career or lead to a devastating rejection. A moment of truth awaited him just outside. Andrew stepped into the hallway, the polished floor reflecting the tension in his mind. The buzz of conversation faded behind him, leaving only a low pounding in his ears. Had he done enough? The investor's silence played on repeat. It felt deafening. Each heartbeat echoed a reminder of his purpose, yet uncertainty gnawed at him. It was a precarious cliffhanger. Did he stand poised for success or teetering on the edge of collapse? He took a moment to breathe, focusing on the threshold of his next steps. Outside, the sunlight bathed the bustling cityscape, a stark contrast to the tumult within him. He had sketched dreams and narratives filled with hope and resilience, yet his hands felt empty, as if the stories had slipped through his grasp. With each step toward the exit, the weight of expectation pressed heavier across his shoulders. His phone vibrated. Karen's name flashed on the screen. He hesitated, fingers hovering. What if the news turned sour, and she felt compelled to sugarcoat disappointment? Yet he knew he needed her perspective. Answering, he forced a smile into his voice. "Hey, Karen. Andrew, how did it go?" Her enthusiasm was infectious, a tether to reality in the whirlwind of his thoughts. "I feel like I laid it all out there, but I don't know if it resonated. I guess we'll see." Uncertainty draped over his words. "It's a lot of pressure. But remember, you're not just selling an idea, you're sharing a vision. Take a moment, breathe. What do you think they were really looking for?" Her question anchored him. What had he missed in the meeting? The investors had glimmers of interest, but was it superficial? With each pulse of realization, Andrew pondered their motivations. What if, beyond financial gains, they craved authenticity? What if they sought leaders with conviction, capable of forging bonds that transcend profit margins? I think they want to feel connected to what we're building," he replied slowly, dawning clarity washing over him. "I shared the stories, but maybe I could have been more explicit about the relationships we're trying to cultivate." Exactly. Expand that in your follow-up. Create a narrative that's undeniable. Let them see the passion behind the numbers. You have to make it personal to them. Andrew felt his confidence rising, a pulse of determination brewing within. Karen's words had lit a fuse. He realized he needed to elevate his approach, from selling a concept to sharing a call to action. He thought of tangible experiences, the moments that shaped those he wished to help. Thanking Karen, he hung up and refocused. The investors were not merely gatekeepers to his ambitions, they were potential partners in a journey. He owed it to them and to himself to draft a narrative that lingered long after the conversation ended. Back at his desk, Andrew opened his laptop, fingers poised over the keys. His mind flooded with ideas. Vision statements weren't enough. He needed to build a bridge to their hearts. Breaking the barriers of skepticism required vulnerability, an invitation into the stories that mattered. He turned back to his presentation, reimagining it. More anecdotes slipped into focus. Tangible moments pinched from lives transformed. Heartbreaks turned to triumphs. The spirit of resilience woven through shared humanity. But he realized he needed to find a way to connect these stories directly to the investor's potential impact, invoking their personal values. What echoed deep within him was not just the stories he narrated, but also the emotional triggers behind them. The moment crystallized into clarity. He was on the brink of crafting something powerful, a synthesis that beckoned not just their investment, but their belief. As the sun began to set, casting a soft glow through his window, a new resolve burned within. He was transforming doubt into determination, chaos into clarity, and fear into a deeper understanding of his mission. But even as he found strength and purpose, a new uncertainty tugged at the edges of his awareness. Would he truly be able to bridge the emotional distance he felt, to connect their financial aspirations with the human element? The stakes remained high, and the pressure to evolve pushed him further toward a critical realignment of his approach.
With a newfound sense of urgency, he prepared to pen his follow-up email. Only, there loomed an unsettling question. What if his next words fell flat, failing to ignite that spark of partnership? The moment had come, not only to take a leap forward, but to face the looming silence of potential rejection once more. As Andrew stared at the blank screen, the cursor blipped in rhythm with his racing heart. Every moment felt like a pivotal juncture, a point of no return. The weight of his thoughts came crashing in waves. Could he truly transform a mere business proposition into a shared vision? He typed, then deleted his words, wrestling with each syllable. How could he possibly convey the ethos that drove him? The stories of those he aimed to uplift had to breathe life into his proposal. He needed to masterfully combine their aspirations with concrete narratives, a fusion of breadth and depth that transcended mere spreadsheets. His fingers flew across the keyboard, capturing fragments of memories of incredible resilience. The single mother who juggled 2 jobs for a better life for her children. The young man who turned his struggles with addiction into a motivational platform inspiring youth across inner cities. Each story emerged not merely as a statistic, but as a visceral experience that could spark connection. But he faltered. What if this emotional appeal fell on deaf ears? Would they see him as merely sentimental, weak in business acumen? No one wanted to partner with someone who showcased vulnerability as a strength. He took a deep breath, reminding himself of Karen's words. They sought authenticity. What if his hesitations and fears were part of the very narrative he needed to share? The raw essence of persistence could resonate deeply, revealing his journey paralleled theirs, individuals striving for something greater than themselves. With renewed resolve, he started weaving his vulnerabilities into the tapestry of his follow-up. Instead of polishing his narrative into something safe and palatable, he would craft it into something daringly authentic, one that recognized the messiness of life amidst ambition. Minutes blurred into an hour, and just as Andrew felt himself gaining momentum, the notifications on his phone broke the rhythm. It was a text from Karen, simple yet powerful. Remember, you're not just telling your story, you're inviting them to be part of it. Make them feel needed. The intensity of those words washed over him like a refreshing wave. His hand trembled as he typed the closing lines. We are on the cusp of creating more than just a business. We're on the path to changing lives. I want you to join us in this journey and help shape a world where resilience is honored. He hovered over the send button, anxiety tightening its grip anew. He had written an email that reflected not only his vision, but also his vulnerabilities. But would they embrace it? Would they respond with the same heart he had laid bare? The potential for rejection loomed large, whispering doubt into his ears. Despite his efforts, what if he had miscalculated his approach yet again? In the silence that followed, he felt the weight of expectation, not just from the investors, but from himself. He was at a crucial threshold, a crossroads of ambition and authenticity. With a final deep breath, Andrew hit send and leaned back in his chair, heart pounding, wondering if his leap had landed or if he had simply jumped off a cliff. Then he noticed something strange. Karen was an extinguished flame of anticipation. The phone screen displayed a video call request from her. Confused, he accepted it, his mind still buzzing. As her face filled the screen, the electricity in her expression sparked a new question in Andrew's mind. Andrew, she began, her voice a mix of urgency and excitement. We need to talk. There's something critical you must know before the meeting. What could be so urgent? The ground beneath him shifted again, and his heartbeat quickened as he braced for what might come next. Karen's eyes reflected an intensity that drove the plot much deeper than mere curiosity. I just spoke to a mutual contact. He mentioned that Jake is escalating his campaign. He's planning something big, investing heavily in marketing to overshadow you. But there's something else. Andrew's breath caught. What do you mean? Jake's focus is entirely on profit margins and surface appeal.
You have something he doesn't, a genuine story and a community connection that goes far beyond the dollars. Her insight rang a bell inside him. Andrew felt fiercely reminded of his purpose, the authenticity that lay in every word he had shared. This moment felt pivotal. It was time to dig deeper and strengthen his approach. I need to leverage that, don't I? To show how investing in my vision is not just a monetary decision, but a commitment to something larger than self-interest. Exactly, Karen affirmed, her excitement infectious. What if you positioned your narrative through the lens of community upliftment, showing that your venture does more than return profits? Present a model emphasizing ethical entrepreneurship. In that instant, Andrew recognized an opportunity for synergy, not just in his business proposal, but within himself. He understood that reclaiming his identity as an entrepreneur meant embracing the societal responsibility that came along with it. He spent the next hour brainstorming. The presentation would not just be a pitch, it would transform into a movement built around values and relationships, delving into how this venture could redefine community resilience in a world tempted to ignore individuals deemed lesser. He shared with Karen the simplest but most profound message. It's not just about reviving my grandfather's legacy. It's about constructing a new legacy that honors the struggles and aspirations of everyone involved. So craft a narrative that makes them feel they can be part of something meaningful, Karen interjected enthusiastically. This is your chance to draw them in, not just as investors, but as collaborators. The idea ignited a fire in Andrew. As he put the final revision of his pitch together, he integrated testimonials not merely as statistics, but as human narratives woven together in a mosaic of shared struggle and triumph. He sent the revised slides to Karen for feedback, brimming with conviction and confidence. The day of the final presentations arrived. Andrew stood at the entrance of the conference room, mind racing yet firmly grounded in the purpose that guided him. He rehearsed his opening lines: honesty, authenticity, opportunity. With each heartbeat, he was no longer the anxious young man overshadowed by Jake's glimmer. He was capable and prepared to define his own success on his terms. As he stepped into the room, he noticed the investors' faces were more animated than before. Their skepticism faded, replaced with curiosity. Andrew launched into his story, weaving together his family's legacy, the struggles of local entrepreneurs, and the vision for a business that served to uplift while profiting. He invited emotion into his presentation. Investing in this venture means believing in the future, a future shaped not by isolation but by collaboration and community, he emphasized, each word cultivated from a... The investors responded with thoughtful questions, their engagement reflecting a willingness to listen. Andrew utilized this dialogue, articulating the intersection between personal stories and the sustainable model they could build together. Finally, as Andrew pushed through his closing remarks, he extended an invitation to join him on this journey, not just as investors, but as partners in reshaping lives. Together, we can cultivate an impact that reverberates far beyond our bottom line. As he finished, the silence was deafening, a taut moment suspended in time that felt like forever. An array of nodding heads and pen scribbling filled the space before the lead investor cleared his throat. Andrew, your vision is compelling. Let's discuss potential figures. In that moment of recognition, the culmination of his hard work came crashing in waves. He had not just reclaimed his path, he had redefined what it meant to embody heritage and entrepreneurship. The room itself seemed to brighten, laden with promise, confirming that dreams could flourish when nourished by both vision and connection. Days later, the phone rang. Andrew's heart raced when he heard the news. His venture had gained initial investors, breathing life into the possibility of a business grounded in values rather than mere profit. He had transformed his personal journey into something that uplifted others, tackling insecurities head-on. In the wake of this success, Andrew understood the profound lesson he had learned. It wasn't just about achieving financial goals. It was about demonstrating resilience, building connections, and empowering those around him. Finally, as he looked down the path ahead, the towering dreams that once felt distant came into focus. As he stood on the steps of his grandfather's house, the old building now a symbol of rebirth rather than decay, he felt unyielding confidence flowing through him. He was no longer simply Andrew Marshall, the diner worker or the grandson of a failed businessman. He was Andrew Marshall, the visionary entrepreneur, eager and capable, ready to lead an era of change. Now, as he stepped forward into an era that promised a legacy of both quality and authenticity, the echoes of his family's past converged seamlessly with his newfound determination. To all who watch this journey, remember, success is not merely about individual gain. It is about the impact we can create collectively. We have the power to lift each other up. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Seriously, it makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.